This is USVI News, your Virgin Islands connection.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for USVI News. I'm Emily Matson. We begin today with details of an unfortunate deadly accident over the weekend on St. Thomas. It happened back on Friday just before midnight on Veterans Drive near Moe's Fresh Market. Police say a black sedan was driving east in the left lane while a white SUV was traveling in the same area in the right lane. Both vehicles collided and the impact forced the black sedan to flip onto its roof. The driver of that sedan, identified as 26-year-old Keone Turnbull, died at the scene. His passenger was rushed to the hospital where VIPD says they remain in stable condition. The Traffic Investigation Bureau is continuing to investigate. And on St. Croix, police say community involvement helped lead to the Criminal Investigation Bureau making a swift arrest in the recent Paradise Mills homicide. 28-year-old Jareem Lake is facing a charge of murder in the first degree. Investigators say he shot 31-year-old Deshaun Huggins in the Paradise Mills housing community just over a week ago, back on September 30th. Police say information they received from the community helped lead them to Lake as the alleged shooter. He's behind bars under a $1 million bond. This Monday, October 10th, is Virgin Islands Puerto Rico Friendship Day. The public holiday celebrates the close relationship of the Virgin Islands with Puerto Rico and the importance of Puerto Ricans in their cultural contributions to the USVI. The day has been around for nearly 6 decades, since 1964. VIPR Friendship Day is declared each year on the second Monday of October and coordinates with Hispanic Heritage Month. VI Senator Angel Boquez said in a statement, quote, "As a third-generation Puerto Crucian born in St. Croix, raised in St. John with family roots in Puerto Rico through my father, I am honored to be serving in the legislature and have this opportunity to celebrate VIPR Friendship Day. It is a blessing to use this platform," he went on to say, "to raise awareness about the connection between two territories, both of which I share deep ties. Happy Puerto Rico Virgin Islands Friendship Day to everybody." Nearly 2 weeks after Hurricane Ian made landfall, Floridians are still struggling to deal with high water and the enormous task of cleaning up. Across the state, more than 25,000 people are still without power. Bradley Blackburn has more on how residents are coping.
The water has receded in Orla Vista, Florida, and this weekend a wave of volunteers surged in. They came to help residents sort through their waterlogged possessions and begin the process of putting their lives back together.
The hurricane came and destroyed it. This one was one of the worst.
Diane Scott's home is now filled with mold. Crews helped her pick through the debris Ian left behind and salvage what she can. Many residents are still searching for a new place to live.
We're just here trying to provide some assistance to them because we know they've been devastated.
Thousands of people across Florida are still without power, and in some places, floodwaters are still swamping homes. On Friday, Governor Ron DeSantis said it's worse in inland areas where 20 inches of rainfall had nowhere to go.
All this stuff is very high right now, so you got a lot of water that's still standing there. So this is an ongoing thing, and the impacts of this have been very, very broad.
It's overwhelming on a level I can't explain.
As cleanup from Ian continues, experts are concerned about the storm's effects on mental health, too. Research shows PTSD, depression, and substance abuse often rise after a disaster strikes. The state is opening support centers, and the federal government has set up a distress helpline. Bradley Blackburn, CBS News.
And coming up later in the newscast, we'll have more on how President Biden's visit to Puerto Rico last week will impact the territory and what the mayor of the town, Ponce, thinks of recovery efforts so far from the devastating Hurricane Fiona. The Virgin Islands Department of Natural Resources Bounty Program is proving to be successful. The Division of Fish and Wildlife issued its first bounty check to a St. Croix resident who recently became a certified wildlife control operator. Jose Bermudez brought in 8 snakes under 4 feet, worth $50 each, and 2 snakes over 4 feet, worth $100 each, for a total bounty of $600. This bounty was rewarded as part of the Invasive Species Eradication Community Program, which enables DPNR to certify members of our community to become wildlife control operators who are eligible to get bounties. Removal agents, they can also be removal agents and start a small business too. Senator Giddens sponsored the legislation. Mr. Bermudez caught all of these snakes you see on the screen in the Creek Dam area of Frederickstead. DPNR encourages everyone who wants to make a difference in the conservation of our native species to sign up for this monumental program. In health news today, fewer people are dying from breast cancer. That's according to a report from the American Cancer Society. However, the latest numbers from the organization show disparities continue to significantly impact the health of Black women. Here's a look at the racial gap that remains and what some say needs to be done to close it in honor of Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
Improved research, better treatments, and screenings have all led to fewer people dying of breast cancer.
The peak year was 1989, and since then, breast cancer mortality has actually fallen by 43%.
But the latest numbers from the American Cancer Society aren't shifting fast enough in the right direction for Black women. The organization says overall, a Black woman is about 40% more likely to die from breast cancer than a white woman.
If you're a Black woman between the ages of 20 and 29, you're actually a double the risk of dying from breast cancer than a white woman of the same age.
The American Cancer Society says it's important to make sure health care is adequate for everyone.
Women of color, particularly Black women, are not always have their mammograms or facilities are the best, not always called back as appropriately they are, and not always given the same opportunities for some of our newer therapies.
Screenings are key, but the organization says there was a dip in mammograms during the height of the pandemic. Well over 1 million fewer people went to their annual screening.
It's important if you do have cancer that we find it really early, because then we can do something about it.
Over Breast Cancer Awareness Month, the American Cancer Society has started a campaign called Grab Your Girls. It's aimed at encouraging women to make breast cancer screening a priority for themselves as well as their family and friends. After more than 2 years of pandemic-related stress and a surge in unruly passengers, the FAA has announced a new rule guaranteeing flight attendants more rest. Tom Costello reports.
They're on the front lines in the nation's skies, dealing with safety, in-flight emergencies, and bad behavior. For years, flight attendants have complained they're overworked and overstressed, as federal rules allowed them to work 14-hour days with 9 hours of rest between shifts. Today, the FAA ordered flight attendants must get a minimum of 10 hours rest.
They need just as much rest because flight attendants are the foundation of aviation safety's culture, starting with cabin safety.
It comes after airlines asked all crew members to work extra shifts during the summer travel surge. It's not just the full flights and the overtime. Flight attendants continue to deal with this increase in unruly, sometimes even violent behavior on board their planes.
This has been the most challenging time in the history of our aviation.
While some airlines have already adopted the new rest rules, they must all comply after the new year. Meanwhile, 43% of Americans are planning to pay more to travel this holiday season. But a new Bankrate survey finds nearly 8 out of 10 are changing their plans due to inflation. Roughly a quarter say they'll travel fewer days and shorter distances, drive instead of fly, and select less expensive destinations or hotels. A third say holiday travel plans will strain their budgets.
They still want to travel. They still want to have the big holiday meal and all the gifts under the tree, but they're going to try to cut some corners and do it differently.
The time to buy airline tickets, say travel pros, is now.
Rapper and philanthropist Master P announced a new book inspired by a young boy from Kentucky who was a victim of gun violence. The book is called Adventures with Malachi. Teamwork Makes the Dream Work, and it was unveiled last week at a YMCA in Louisville, Kentucky. Malachi is a young boy who back in December of 2020 was blinded by random gunfire which was shot into his home. The book is created under the cereal brand Snoop Loops, which Master P and Snoop Dogg created together. Master P says the story has many core values centered around teamwork.
We want kids to know how to overcome adversity. And by him losing his eyesight with the tragedy that he's been through, this is incredible to be able to write a book with Malachi.
Adventures with Malachi, Teamwork Makes the Dream Work, doesn't currently have a release date as yet, but Master P says it will be released very soon.